Hello, my name is Dylan McFry, and today I'm here to present to you Gordon Central High School's Data Overview. This is for ITEC 7305, and I'm looking forward on working with all of you today to analyze some data gathered from some end-of-course assessments from students at Gordon Central High School. Today's presenter, my name is, again, Dylan McFry. I am a physics teacher at Gordon Central High School, which is located in Calhoun, Georgia. The subject of this presentation is going to be 10th graders, so that is the grade level that we're dealing with. The intended audience of today's presentation will be the Gordon Central High School school governance team as well as school administration officials. The purpose of this presentation will be to demonstrate the need for an enhanced focus from teachers on ELL students, which is English language learners, and we're going to do this by examining 3 years of biology end of course, or EOC, exam data. So we're going to look at the results of 3 years of end-of-course assessments. We'll begin here with some demographic information. I first thought it was important to establish some demographic information for the teachers at Gordon Central High School. The total number of teachers was set at 59 from 2016 to 2017 and 2018-2019 school years, and it jumped up to 60 in the middle of that, the 2017 to 2018 school year. Again, those are the years that we are going to be focusing on for the 3 years of data gathered: the 2016-2017 school year, the 2017-2018 school year, and the 2018 to 2019 school year. A breakdown of the teacher demographics you see from the chart here. The total number of teachers broken down by race/ethnicity is the staff at Gordon Central High School is overwhelmingly white from like almost a 90% standpoint. The numbers here, as you see, the white teachers from all 3 years are broken down as a majority white. There are some black. The numbers went from 1, 2 to 1, and then Latino from 2, 1 to 1. So obviously the staff at Gordon Central High School from a race ethnicity standpoint is a majority white. Moving on from teacher demographics, moving on to another aspect of teacher demographics, we're now going to focus on years of experience. And from this line graph here, what we can see is a majority of the teachers at the school fall in the category of 11 to 20 years of experience. We also have a pretty decently even mixture of 21 to 30 years experience and then the 1 to 10 level experience, with the two smallest categories being the less than 1 year, so the brand new teachers, which consistently ranked below 5, and then of course the over 30 years of experience teachers, the ones that could retire but are continuing to work. So you see a majority of the school falls in the category of 11 to 20 years of experience. So it is a veteran staff at Gordon Central High School. Moving on from there, we're now going to focus on some student demographics to establish what the student makeup at Gordon Central High School looks like. So here we have the student demographics broken down by race, ethnicity, and just like the teaching staff, what we see here is that a majority of the students at Gordon Central High School are white, with a student body that consistently over the 3 years went for anywhere from 880 up to 920. We see that almost between 600 and 700 consistently through the 3 years were white students. Black or African American was the smallest percentage of students, and then Latino saw a consistent rise in population, but they still were in the 200 to 300 range, closer to 200. And for the 2016 school year, 2016-2017, we did have some Asian Pacific Islander ethnic students, but that number dropped to 0 for the 2017 to 2018 and the 2018 to 2019 school years. So just like the teaching staff at Gordon Central High School, the student body is a majority white. Another area of student demographics that I wanted to focus on here is more student demographics from the 3 years selected, but we're focusing on other subgroups. We have male and female, so Gordon Central High School consistently from the 3 years showed a higher male than female population. Not by much, but males did outnumber the females in all 3 years. Low socioeconomic status students was a very, very high number. In our demographic breakdown, as you can see here, the low socioeconomic number was consistently hovering between 5 and 600 students. So it is a higher than 50% of the student body. We have English language learners down near the bottom, students with disabilities, and then we also have it broken down even further between special education, regular education, and gifted, which regular education is particularly on a higher percentage than the other two categories. So moving on again, our next slide, we have one last student demographic breakdown. We now have a pie chart to demonstrate here some student program percentages, and this is a base from 2016 all the way to 2019. As we saw in the previous graph, this focused on the other student programs specifically. So we have ESOL at 4% of the student body over those 3 years. 9% were gifted, 13% of students were special ed, which left 74% as, for lack of a better term, regular education. Moving on again to more data gather, we're now going to focus on specifically the student achievement data that we came here to discuss. So this is going to be assessment data from specifically the biology end of course test, or the EOC. 10th graders at Gordon Central High School take this test, or a few 9th graders that are honors, but honors was recently switched to 10th grade as well. So it is a 10th grade assessment for Gordon Central High School. And from the data available online, they did not make test data available for any ethnic groups or races that had less than 10 members. So because of that, African Americans were excluded, and the only two demographics that were included here were white and Latino, which are the two major ethnic groups or races at Gordon Central High School. And you can see here we have our years 2016, 2017, 2017, 2018, 2018, 2019. We have the white scores and then Latino scores. And another important aspect of this is percentage of students at the two highest levels. There are 4 levels that you can reach on the biology EOC. These are percentage of students that reach the 2 highest, which are called proficient and distinguished. And of those percentages, we see the red line here represents white students, and they consistently ranked higher. They did show a decrease from 2017 to the 2018 school year. However, it was nowhere near as dramatic as the drop we saw here from our Latino students from 2016 to 2017, with a major drop from almost 45% down to 20%, and that continued to drop for the following year. So that is something to see from the beginning. We then move on next. We got a bar graph here. This is going to be a comparison of biology EOC scores, but this time it's going to be a school, district, and state comparison. We are again focusing on percentage of students who scored at least proficient or distinguished level on the biology EOC. And what we see here, the red bars are Gordon Central High School, as demonstrated by our key. The pink bar is the district, Gordon County Schools. And finally, the purple is the state results. And what we can see here is that Gordon Central High School consistently ranked evenly with or above both the district and the state level for biology EOC scores when it relates to the proficient and distinguished categories of the results, which is a big positive. One last set of data here before we start moving on to analyzing certain aspects of the data. We have biology end of course test, or EOC data here, but this time instead of being broken down by racial groups, this one is going to be broken down by other subgroups. And again, we're dealing with percentage of students who scored proficient or distinguished on this assessment. We did male students, female students, students with disabilities, English language learners, and low socioeconomic status students. What we see here, again, red, pink, and purple go from the 2016, 2017 to 2018 school year. So each individual section, we can mark the progress of students over these 3 years. And what we can see is, with two exceptions actually, most groups went down. So male students saw their percentages slip from almost 50, and they came down here below the 40 mark. Females students saw a rise in the second year, but then a sharp decline in the third year. Students with disabilities saw a very sharp decline after the 2016 school year, and that continued. English language learners with limited English proficiency saw a very low percentage from the get-go, and they even dropped to 0% during the second 2 years, and then low socioeconomic, like the others, like female students, saw a brief climb and then a drop in year 3. So, some specific questions we need to answer and also some things to focus on. First, what I would like to do for our data discussion is present to you some strengths. And there's one strength in particular, I already mentioned it, but it bears repeating, is that Gordon Central High School, throughout the 3 years that we sampled, consistently ranked higher than the state and district average as it relates to percentage of students who scored at the 2 highest levels of the biology EOC, which were proficient and distinguished. So this was a huge positive to take from the data that we analyzed. However, what we then move on to is going to be a discussion of weaknesses. Now, one particular area of the academic improvement that is needed most, ELL students' biology EOC scores. So the biology EOC score is of our English language learners. I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that would be a focus here, and the data has borne that out. According to the data that we analyzed, English language learners, or ELL students with limited English speaking capabilities, they never went above the 10% mark of students who reached the proficient or distinguished level on the biology EOC. In fact, the 2017 to 2018 and the 2018-2019 school year saw 0% of students in that subgroup reach those high marks on the exam, which is concerning. So now what we need to discuss, action steps to remedy this problem. There are 2 particular action steps that I would like to present to you. The first is that enhanced attention needs to be given to ELL learners in biology classrooms. And that leads right into our second action step. Emphasized focus must be placed on the ESOL program in the school, which includes hiring staff members who are bilingual in English, and Spanish. A huge problem at Gordon Central High School and a lot of other schools I've come to realize is that the ESOL program is not given the attention it deserves. In fact, most of the time the teacher that is in charge of ESOL is someone who does not even speak Spanish, so their ability to help the students they're supposed to be helping is limited from the very beginning. So without this focus on the ESOL program, Spanish-speaking students are simply thrown into a majority English-speaking classroom or all English-speaking classroom and expected to perform well on standardized tests, which, by the way, are also not translated for the students, which could represent, from the data where we saw that no students in this subgroup were scoring highly on the biology EOC. So next steps, where do we go from here? I pose a question to each of you listening. What do you think Gordon Central High School could do to improve biology EOC scores for struggling ELL students? Another question I would pose to you for you to think about. How many teachers should be in charge of the ESOL program? Is one teacher enough? Should there be more? These are questions we should consider. Going forward, Gordon Central High School must enhance their ESOL program to account for the many struggling ELL students who are not receiving the attention that they need to thrive in English classrooms. How this plays out in real time, we're not sure. But as we go, we must make sure that Gordon Central High School continues to give this student subgroup, these wonderful students, the attention that they deserve so that they may do the best that they can do. All students are capable of learning, and all students must be given the proper attention to make sure that they can learn the way that they learn best. Thank you so much for listening.